on that front, but we're going to get to that later. We're just going to have fun. We're just going to talk about the Colorado Avalanche today until we get into that a little bit later. Like I said, I am your host, Ezra Parter, and I'm joined by our fellow writers on the site. Everybody introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob.
Perfect. Jack.
Oh, hi. I'm here.
Okay, great. And Adrian Hernandez.
I'm here. I did it. We did it.
Excellent. We are all writers on the site and podcasters on this podcast. Good job, you're listening to it. We have a great show for you planned for today. A bunch of stuff to talk about. But before we do, I have to let you know that if you're listening to this show live on YouTube, you're a gem. Good job. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe it. That helps us a ton. If you're listening to this podcast later and you're like, wow, I wish I was watching it on YouTube. Yeah, we do too. But good job as well. Like and subscribe on your podcast app too. We appreciate that too. We record these and put them out live, and then they're available as podcasts the day after the show. Anywhere that you want to hear a podcast, except oddly the podcast player I use, but that's okay. Spotify, iTunes, and Audible. We'll get into that later, Adrian. I was meaning to talk to you about it. And yeah, we're going to talk about the games that we've played so far this week, Vancouver and Seattle. We count the weekend as the week. And because we are coming to you on a Monday, we're going to get into a live poll about our defense, and talking about some injuries and talking about what's going on with SB Nation. But before we get into all that, we have to get to what we said we'd start with, which of course is the wins against Vancouver and Seattle. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed those games. I don't know about you. I like a good win. The Vancouver game, though, I wasn't able to watch very much of. Jacob, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a little weird just because the main theme of that game, we're so Avalanche centric here, but it was Bruce Boudreau. That was the story of the entire NHL this week, and so it was the Avalanche. They took care of business. They beat the crap out of Vancouver. It was one of those games that we're used to as Avs fans, at least last year, where they just jump out early on, get on the other team, and it's just kind of over early on. And so that made it a little somber, I would say, just watching Boudreau kind of go out like that. You hear the Bruce there it is chants, and you almost felt bad. But it's like, this is it's not the Avalanche's fault, obviously. It's because Vancouver as an organization is the biggest mess in the NHL right now. But it was essentially kind of rubbing the salt in a very open and deep wound out in Vancouver.
Yeah, that situation is crazy. If you only pay attention to Colorado and you don't know what we're talking about, speculation around Bruce Boudreau being fired has been going on for about a month, and it's pretty much confirmed that he was going to be replaced. He played out the string and was finally replaced this morning or yesterday by Rick Tocchet. And yeah, against the Avs, the crowd was cheering for him, and then I believe it was last night the crowd was cheering for him again in a home loss, and he teared up when they said, Bruce, there it is. It's a nice moment, seeing how much those fans respected him. But we're an Avalanche pod, so Jackie, anything about the Avalanche play in Vancouver that stood out to you?
Well, I actually think it was sort of a big game in a way. Like, the Avs had something to prove just because they had lost to Vancouver twice already this year, so they had to avoid the sweep, and they had won 3 games at that point, so they were starting to look a lot better, starting to roll, but it was important for them to win this game, and it's good that distractions didn't get to them. I mean, obviously they weren't about their team, but there's just a lot of non-hockey things going on, and it can affect both teams, so I'm glad that that didn't happen. They scored a couple power play goals, so I think that was also important to get that rolling. I think they were both 5-on-3s, so that does change it a little bit. But then on the other hand, like, you just absolutely have to score on a 5-on-3 if you're given one, and they did. And so I think those are also some positives to take out of that game.
Yeah, and they'd spent so much of that terrible December, January power play streak of a lack of finish not finishing on 5-on-3s when they had the opportunity. So it is great to see that. It is. Adrian, was there anything more to the Seattle matchup the next night, given that their lineup has so many former Avalanche, Grubauer, Burakovsky?
I would say you'd probably guess yes, based on just like the personality types on the Avalanche roster, and honestly the guys' personality types of the guys who left. Like, it's pretty well documented that Andre Burakovsky and Nathan MacKinnon were pretty close while he was in Colorado. And I think, like, if that remains true, it's always fun to play your friends and to beat your friends so that when you go to dinner the next night, you have some shit to talk. So I think, like, that definitely plays a factor, especially for guys specifically like MacKinnon and Rantanen, and maybe even a guy like Georgiev who's facing, a former Avalanche goaltender. It's probably like a tip in the cap to get one over the other guy. Or was it Frankie in net that night? I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
it was.
Frankie,
it's same even more so there. Like, Frankie just beat his old teammate, the guy who was the 1A, so to speak, above him. I mean, that's kind of a feather in his hat, and I think, like, it brings more to the matchup every time the Avs and the Seattle Kraken play, especially now that the Kraken are a little bit better than people expected them to be.
Absolutely. And Burakovsky, of course, was out injured that game, but it would have been nice to see them reunite. And I imagine they did behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Burakovsky's such a like funny dude. I'm sure he was good to joke around.
Well, yeah, and you even see like Abe Kubel and Kemper watching the Avs skate today ahead of the Capitals game. So anybody in that locker room when they won the championship, I think anytime they meet each other again, or even in the years leading up to that, like, it's a little bit more special, or there's a little bit more to play for. Not that you have to get up for an NHL hockey game if you're a pro, but it's always fun to play guys you used to know, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. Now the Avs went from a 5-game losing streak right into a 5-game winning streak that we're currently hoping to extend tonight against Washington, like you said. Jacob, what do you credit to that turnaround?
I mean, Val Nichushkin, right? That's kind of the story of the season.
For
is
real.
that when Nichushkin is in the lineup, they're the Avalanche, and when he's not, they're not. And I mean, you can really just see it, in their streakiness this year. The beginning of November, they won. It was 7 out of 8, and then they went and lost 5 of their next 8, and then they win 5 of their next 6, and then they lose 7 of their next 8. Then now they're on a 5-game winning streak, and so it's it's kind of emblematic of a team that's still trying to find their way and find this year's identity. Last year's identity was depth, and that their second line was better than most teams' first lines on any given night. And now this year, you have to twist Bednar's arms to play 4 full lines on any given night. And so I think that really what we're seeing is a team that I think is on the upswing. They are starting to figure it out, but this pendulum that they're on, where they're either really, really good or really, really bad and nothing in between, it's it's a little bizarre, for a Stanley Cup champion.
It is really amazing how much of a difference Nichushkin makes, because it's not just his on-ice play. Like, obviously on the ice, he's finishing well, and he's a defensive stalwart. We know that. He's so great at funneling the opposing forwards through the neutral zone into where the defense wants them to be, and then winning puck battles. But it's also what he does to where people are placed in the lineup, right? Like seeing Alex Newhook getting to be a third-line center with O'Connor and Cogliano and being really effective in that role is really exciting, and it's made possible by Nichushkin's return, and it's only going to get better when Landeskog gets back too. Jackie, Pavel Francouz and Alexander Georgiev are shaping up to be one of the league's best goalie combinations. Obviously, Daryl Sutter, when they were playing Calgary, was saying it's the league's best 1A and 1B. Do you think they should be splitting time more evenly going forward, or should we see more Georgiev? What are your thoughts?
I think they probably should trend a little bit more towards a split, and we'll see what happens going forward, since I think Bednar even said that he thinks Georgiev looks better with a little bit of a break. And so maybe they don't want to ride him quite as hard as they did through the month of December. And obviously with Francouz missing some time, that made that a necessity. But it should be maybe closer to like a 60-40 split, I think. Both are playing well, and that's a luxury. So, yeah, I'd probably like to see it even out a little bit more, even though I think it is important to still make Georgiev feel like the starter, and he's the guy you'd start in a big game or something like that. But I think you need to utilize both of them because that is sort of the strength of the team this year.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely been a backbone to this turnaround as well, alongside Nichushkin. You mentioned keeping Georgiev feeling like he's a number one. Do y'all think that he is that his confidence is affected by seeing Francouz taking games, or that he's just relishing this rest?
I don't necessarily. I think they make it clear enough. I think Francouz is like the perfect backup. Like he's just never looking to sort of sneak in and thwart the number one. Like I think he's the perfect support for a number one, and so I don't think Georgiev should feel threatened. So I don't really think it's about that, or it's really going to come to that unless things go really crazy. So I don't really think that's anything going on behind the scenes, but it's still like a confidence thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're brought in to be the team's number one, you kind of still need to feel like the team's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of catch-22 that the NHL is in, that, having a 1A and 1B goalie is all the rage. That's kind of the, accepted wisdom, is that's how you get through a regular season, is you have to have two goalies. You can't, there's only one Vasilevsky, there's only one Shesterkin. If you don't have one of those guys, you need two. But come playoffs, you can't play two. You have to play one. So like it's a delicate balance to try to figure this out, where you say, okay, we're going to give both of these guys enough reps to the point where they feel like, they are part of the team. They're they're central to these teams' fortunes. But at the same time, you need to make it clear that come playoff time, one of those guys is the guy. And you can't have, it's the old adage about two quarterbacks. If you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And that's kind of the case come playoff time with goalies,
Right.
is that if you don't have one that you're settling on, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
Sorry, analytically, like Georgiev is, I think, 13th in the league in goals saved above expected, and that's like with goalies that have had like at least 10 starts, I want to say, and then Francouz is a little bit further down that list. He's like, I want to say like 23, 24. So I think with that being said, obviously deeper analytics don't tell the whole story; they tell a part of it, a very detailed and logical part of it, but it just goes to show that I think like that stat tells you two things. One, he doesn't quit, and two, like that probably seeps into the psychology of his teammates, right? Like if you make a mistake in front of Georgiev, it's not to say the confidence isn't there with Frankie, but like you've seen it be backed up by a save or two with Georgiev when they get beat. And that has happened for Frankie as well. Frankie's probably one of my favorite guys in terms of making saves that he probably shouldn't. I don't know at what rate that is in comparison. Obviously, it's not as high of a rate, but his are a little bit flashier. I think it's just the silly sideness of him that kind of brings that to the table. But with the whole Georgiev and Frankie situation, like Jackie said, I think they've made it pretty clear that Frankie's the backup, and they've made that clear about him throughout his career. Like even when he was really doing well the last couple of years before injury, and the fans were saying, let's put Frankie in it. Even Frankie was like, yeah, I'm a backup. I'm just doing this until our guy gets back. So I think the message is pretty clear. And going back to if you have two goalies, you don't have any. That's entirely accurate. Like look who played last Stanley Cup final. It was basically Darcy Kemper with one eye instead of Pavel Francouz. So, that just goes to show there was a 1 and a 2 last year, although they kind of told us otherwise.
And Frankie is like we've said, Frankie is the perfect attitude to be a number two. I think I don't know him personally, but I just think Michael Cera, like he's just like, yeah, I'm here, I got you. He's a great guy. He's great. Now, end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Michael Cera is Georgiev. That's a great movie. Now we are going to do a live poll here on Twitter where we want to find out who folks think the Avs should keep around when Bo Byram, Josh Manson, and Cale Makar get healthy on that defense. We are expecting them to come back after the All-Star break, all three of them. Cale Makar hopefully sooner. Josh Manson was skating in a red jersey this morning, and Kale was back in black, so that's good. But we've got a couple of options to bench on the Avs defense. There's Curtis McDermott, there's Andreas Englund, there's Brad Hunt, there's Jacob McDonald, and the fan favorite to bench obviously is Sam Girard. Fan favorite as a I completely disagree with them kind of fan, but yeah. So what do you all think about this? Jacob, we'll start with you. Who would you sit? We got 3 guys coming back, 3 guys to sit. Where do you start?
I mean, of all of the guys to keep, I would say it's Brad Hunt. That guy, he's found a scoring touch. He has as many goals on the year as Devon Toews does. He has as many goals on the year as Samuel Girard does. He's got more goals than Bowen Byram, Josh Manson, Martin Kaut. I mean, he has a howitzer of a shot. That's the thing that's kind of kept him around the NHL all these years. And he plays he's the Avalanche style as far as this kind of undersized defenseman who's really good at moving the puck. He's has the right amount of urgency, I think, getting it out of his own zone where it's not, he knows that it's got to get out soon, but he's not panicking. And that, again, that howitzer of a shot, that's the tiebreaker, against Englund and McDermott and McDonald. If you put the puck in the back of the net, you got to stay in the NHL.
Yeah, I like that. Adrian, what do you think? Yeah.
I'll get back to that in a second. I'll just wanted to add something about Hunt. I think the reason why he's looking better is because he's kind of like improved through his whole time. And I think Englund, if you had asked this question like 2 weeks ago, I think Englund would have been the guy to keep, but he's sort of not been playing as much and regressing a little bit. So it really is a toss up between the two. I would expect both of them to go before either McDonald or McDermott, though. And about Hunt, like this, he does have a really hard shot, but it's really unpredictable and inaccurate. So when it does connect and go in the back of the net, it looks amazing. When it doesn't, a lot of self clears, a lot of really bad missed shots. So that's kind of the difference between what keeps the guy in the NHL and AHLers. Like guys like Hudon can look really good, but is it ever really going in the net? So that's kind of something I keep in mind.
Interesting.
But to get back to the McDermott question, yeah, I've been befuddled for like 2 years now. I don't really get it. He does seem like a really nice guy. We always got to say that. We don't want to hate on him as a person because it does seem like his teammates really enjoy him and everything like that. But to that, I also say there's a lot of nice guys in the AHL that don't get the opportunity either. So
Peyton Middleton.
That shouldn't be the reason why somebody gets to stick around. And on the intimidation thing, it doesn't make sense to me either because he's not that guy. Like he's huge and he can deliver a couple big hits, but he's not aggressive. He doesn't go after guys. There is no retaliation. This is why he doesn't fight that much because he's not that guy. Like he's almost too nice. He's a gentle giant is what he really is. Like Englund has been in more fights, I think, since he's been in the lineup. There's
he
other
can
guys
throw
that
him too. Englund can throw
that
him.
are way more intimidating in that way. Like to me, the argument isn't even like, does that bring value? It's that he is not that guy. He's not what you hear on Altitude. He's not what the narrative says about him. And that's the part that drives me the craziest, I think, is because he's not even doing that. And Bednar doesn't believe in retaliation either. Anything that happens, he's always like, nope, move on to the next shift. Like they're never looking for payback. So if it's just so funny when you hear like, oh, send McDermott after him. It's like they literally don't do that. So
and I love those altitude guys being like, oh yeah, he's out there, he's making sure nobody's gonna challenge him. Nobody's ever gonna challenge him. It's like, no, he's not gonna challenge anyone. He's just out there. He's just out there.
I'd be interested to see if the combined fights McKinnon and Landeskog have gotten in, is that more than all of the fights that McDermott has gotten in? Just because like it seems like it should be
for
about
sure,
even.
Landy.
And this isn't to say that we want him to fight more. This is like a positive that he doesn't fight to me, but he also has no other positives. So it's I don't understand. And Jackie's right. We don't want to hate him on him as a person. I'm sure everybody says he's a super good locker room presence. That's great. But I mean, can we talk about the Seattle game for Curtis? He was out there falling over every shift. Every time a puck hit him, it was a turnover. I swear, like the trade was Curtis McDermott for a 5th round pick and a guarantee that when he plays Seattle, he doesn't wear skates. It was insane. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, how is that an NHL player? Yeah. And I know we just got into this hockey is for everyone controversy with what was happening in Philadelphia with Ivan Provorov. And it is for everyone, but it's not for people who can't skate.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that too, because that's totally like the antithesis of Colorado's identity. Like the Avalanche are known as a very fast, very talented skating team. Like Cale Makar's the best skater, probably defenseman skater, at least in the league. So
absolutely.
It's kind of like a contradiction to what it feels like the Avs are trying to do and formulate within their lineup, which is why like I think he's the obvious choice for who you sit and who you scratch, because pretty much anybody else that you have to replace him with fits the Avs stylistically better.
100%. And I like this. Go ahead. Sorry, Jackie.
I was going to say, I will say in his credit, I think they've worked on his offense as a defenseman. I think as a forward, he provides nothing.
Right.
It's just easier to hide him. But as a defenseman, they have implemented their system and their style that he is able to generate a little bit from the back end. It's just the unfortunate part is that he has to be defending as a defenseman, and that's sort of the problem. Like, I know they like to keep him because he can play both. And then if he doesn't play for like 3 weeks, if the miracle ever happens and they're healthy, then so be it. Like, I get that. But to me, it's odd that they're doing the same thing with McDonald as well. It's like, you definitely don't need 2 of these. Like, pick between them. And to me, that's stranger that they've decided to then double down with this strategy that didn't ever seem to work. And now they're just keeping McDonald around.
Yeah,
and
it was...
Sorry, let me give you guys a live poll update. So right now it's 41% Curtis McDermott, 7% Sam Girard. More people are voting for Sam Girard than Brad Hunt.
And people out of
Jacob McDonald is the winner right now with 49%, which kind of lines up with what Jackie's saying. Is like those two dudes do the same thing.
Yeah, and just like to piggyback off of Jackie's points, I don't understand why McDonald, like, they even pretend that he's a forward, because the like every game that they do dress him as a 4th line center or a 4th line winger, he gets like 2 or 3 shifts and plays like 2 minutes the entire night. Just like, what is the point of that? You couldn't. I get that you want to develop the kids down, in the AHL, but you're telling me that like Sampo Ranta couldn't give better minutes than Jacob McDonald could on the 4th line.
Apparently not, after what he did in Ottawa last week. But sorry, Sampo, but that was rough. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I will say Jacob McDonald defensively against Seattle was solid. I didn't mind him. Against Vancouver, he was up and down, and last week I thought there were some more minuses than pluses. So maybe he's rounding into like capable again. And he was so fun when he was new. Remember? Oh, that was great. But yeah, for me, it's got to be put McDermott in the press box, put Jacob McDonald back in the AHL, let Englund or Brad Hunt be your 7th defender. I like Englund. I know he had some rocky play and got benched for a bit, but I like him a lot. I think he's for sure a 3rd pairing defenseman in the NHL, whether here or somewhere else in the near future. But But yeah, God, I can't believe they're 7% for Gerard.
Yeah, we got 9. It's
and
up
the
to
sad
9.
thing is I don't think it's all an ironic 7%.
It's
No.
not.
I'd be willing to wager that's like 90% serious. Like all of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I hopped in my car last week and just turned on altitude radio, and the first thing I hear are people psychoanalyzing Sam Gerard, and it's really like it has become like a really bizarre obsession at this point, where like there's a certain stripe of Avs fan where all they ever want to do is talk about Sam Gerard. There's nobody else on the team who like even comes up. It's just as as soon as anything negative happens, it's like, oh, that was Sam Gerard's fault. It's like he wasn't even on the ice. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he has 2
It's
points
like,
in his
yeah,
+1 in the last 5. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it is true that he doesn't put up the offensive numbers that he used to. That's true. But then there are plays he makes defensively that are like, oh, he's still the same guy. He's just not as assertive and not as effective, but he's still there.
But what's funny about you saying that though, like his offensive statistics, he's never been a goal scorer. Like his high has been 5 goals. He's had 1, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 3 so far this season. If he gets 2 goals in the next month, he's gonna have a career high in goals. He's
had some big goals. I think he scored twice in the playoff, or twice
he's got
against
half as
St.
many
Louis.
points as he did last season in about half as many games, and he's got. I mean, in the season before that, they only played 44 or 48, and he had 16 points. So it's, 32 points. I don't get. He's been a top 4 defender since he's been in the league, and he came into the league at a young age. People forget, and I think this has a lot to do with Cale Makar's presence here, because we see how quickly Cale went from the kid who won the Hobie Baker and scored against his old team in the playoffs to the most dominant defender in the world. And that accelerated path, I think, sheds a light on other people, other young defenders in particular. That's just not realistic for them to live up to. Like, what do people want from Sam Gerard, I guess, is my question.
Well, the other thing is, as amazing as Cale is, and he does create a lot of offense himself, he does also benefit from quarterbacking the first power play unit.
Yep.
That's about 20 to 25 free points for any defenseman in the league, is to be on the power play unit like that. So, and I also feel like this light is cast on Byram, where it's like, oh, well, maybe his offense will develop one of these days. And it's like, he's pretty much at a half a point per game for his career. And that includes at the beginning of his career, he really didn't score that much. But it's like, just because he didn't score a goal in the playoffs last year, it's like Byram has no offense. Like, he scored a goal before Makar this year. And he has 2 goals and 3 assists in the 10 games that he's played this year. And he gets a lot of his at even strength. And so you definitely have to be comparing apples to apples here. And I agree with Gerard, and I think he's on I don't know exactly what it is, but he's on a decent points run lately. But that's also part of the team. Like, the whole team wasn't scoring at 5-on-5. So he doesn't get power play points. And so when the whole team's suffering at 5-on-5, where do you expect him to get the offense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is the power play, the second unit that, would be nice if the second unit got kicking. But I think we got spoiled last year when the second unit was top line players on other teams. So, having Andre Burakovsky as your second unit shooter is pretty good. If you see him scoring a ton in Seattle this year, he belongs on a first power play unit. So that definitely contributed. But I will say Gerard at his peak put up 34 points in 1920. And right now he's on pace for 20 points, which it is a down year. It's definitely a down year. But then that said, he had 23 last year and everybody was happy with his play. So I don't know. It's not really fair to judge him based only on the numbers. I do want to judge him a little bit based on how effective he is at turning pucks over in the defensive zone and getting things going offensively. It's been a little bit rougher this year, I think. I don't have the underlying numbers in front of me, but it has been a little bit rougher. But on the flip side of that, he's, working pucks out to Sampo Ranta and other guys who wouldn't normally be in the NHL. So it's not really apples to apples, like Jackie was saying.
Yeah, it's a weird spot where, like, Gerard hasn't been perfect. And I think that one of the bigger issues that you can identify with the Avs is that the second defensive pairing has gotten worked a lot throughout this whole stretch. Now, how much of that is because, Bednar hasn't had a fourth line to play, and so he's had a bunch of, tired forwards that have made life extra difficult on Girard and Johnson. Like, that's all intertwined. And so, Girard is absolutely deserving of some criticism. It's just that a lot of the criticism is like certifiably insane. You want this guy off the team, like, sure, like, say drop him down to the third defensive pairing or whatever, and cut his minutes and try to send a message. But like, you want to bench this guy for Curtis McDermott? What? Like,
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
What if I told you to go ahead, Jackie?
I was gonna say I found a really odd statistical anomaly with Girard, and I haven't looked it up in the last couple of weeks, but he does really well with Francouz, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just a weird, I don't know, anomaly. But then with Georgiev, it's really bad, and so like his on ice save percentage is what I'm talking about. So like with Francouz, it was like a 960, and with Georgiev, it was like an 860 or something like that. Like that wide of a spectrum, and so I don't know if there's anything to it. If it's like communication or because Francouz catches on the other side. And then I know that Sam is the one that has to switch sides a lot. Like he plays right defense a lot if he's not with Erik Johnson. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that maybe works into it. I just thought it was a really strange difference there. So I'm also kind of watching, like, now that Francouz is back and playing more, is Girard suddenly looking better? Is there something to that or not? I don't know.
Yeah,
I hope so.
That's really interesting.
Funny enough, too, like we talked a lot about Girard's defensive zone giveaways. He has one less than Devon Taves and 11 less, half as many as Cale Makar. Now, obviously, Cale Makar is on the ice for like 27 minutes a night, so that's going to happen. He's just going to have more of every stat, pretty much. But like to sit here and expect like to act as if Girard is giving the puck away more than anybody else is kind of naive and not true. Sure, maybe situationally you see the giveaway and situationally it hurts more, but on a strictly number basis, the guy only has 17 giveaways. Like what they consider true giveaways, which is like passing the puck right to the other team. So like he's really kind of floating in a familiar territory, something he's always really done. Now, you can say, well, the fans have always had an issue with him and his giveaways. I don't think that's true. When Girard kind of first came in as a result of the trade, people were very excited about him. And also, they loved his play style, especially the Tornado. Like that was, everybody was like, oh man, the Avs have won this trade already because Sam Girard. So it's just funny to me how quickly it went from, look at how promising and young and what a great contract Sam Girard is on, to, oh my gosh, this guy is a problem. We got dudes holding up signs in Avalanche jerseys.
That's so sad, really.
In opposing arenas saying trade Girard. Like that's tell me you're out of touch without telling me you're out of touch. Like just because you can buy a jersey doesn't make you a fan, and that person is proof. If that's how you express your fandom, I invite you to go be a fan of the Boston Bruins, because that shit doesn't fly for me. I'm just saying.
Maybe that guy was undercover trying to get Girard traded.
Maybe he wasn't. Yeah, that's true. Maybe he was a Canucks fan. Doing a little
trade Girard
reverse psychology. I will
Yeah.
say, I mean, I admit that I have been a Girard fan. I have a Girard reverse retro, so I wear that proud, especially when I feel like he needs a little bit of extra support. It's the Vegas series. Like he got scapegoated for that, and that series was not his fault. Like that's when they had Nemeth. The whole team was terrible. They just kept zooming in on him on NBC. Like it's their fault. They were the ones that started that narrative and was like, oh boy, Sam Girard was on the ice. And it was like, he was the one trying to basically do three people's jobs. Like he's the one back. Usually the one guy that's back isn't the one that caused the problem.
Yeah, good
right?
point.
But he's putting out fires.
Yeah, but he's the one like, oh, it's a 3-on-1, and look, Girard didn't stop the pass, so it's his fault. And
and if you still think that he was the problem in the Vegas series, you did not watch, because the problem in the Vegas series was the second line, and the Avs did not have an answer for their second line. Their second line just absolutely dominated over and over again. We couldn't get the puck from him, and that had nothing to do with Sam Girard unless he was on the ice. But like that was like Jackie, you said, that was a complete team effort, and honestly, they lost as a team to the Knights. We didn't have what it took that year. That's what we found out. But it had nothing to do with Girard, and everyone's gonna say, well, the Avs finally did it, and guess who was out of the lineup with injury? Good for you. Good for you.
He scored against St. Louis. Like it's not like he did nothing. I mean, he was a huge part of why they won I think the first 2 games against St. Louis. So you can't say like, oh, they only won because they didn't have him. I think they won because they had Byram that was able to take those minutes. Is really why I think they won.
That's
but it wasn't
right.
It wasn't because they didn't have Girard, and it's like, I think it's good that you guys have pointed out that he does deserve some criticism this year. Like, he has been on the ice for a lot of goals against. That's true. Like I said, I pointed out for some reason him and Georgiev don't mix. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of the reason, but it's unfair to the point that you want him off the team, like you guys said. And honestly, I do think there's bias. His size, French, there's a reputation like, oh, players from the Q, they can't defend. Like, there's still that bias. And you can definitely see the bias showing, is what I say. Like, everyone's free to like who they like and dislike who they dislike, but it's frustrating when you can definitely see there's obvious size and type bias.
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
I think the thing that's so frustrating about it, like going back to that Vegas series, how everybody just, that's the only lens in which they look through Sam Girard. The complaints that are made against him that, he's small, he's soft, he's not physical enough. If you listen to the Avs after that series, they said that was the entire team's problem, that they just didn't match Vegas's physicality, that, if you want to call him soft, I guess like that's, the way that they played that series. And they took away from that series saying, we need to be a bigger and more physical team. And so, it's very unfair to sit there and focus it on Girard when if you listen to guys like Nathan McKinnon after that series, they were basically saying the same thing about the entire team. And so, the next year they come back and they win it all. They prove that they did take, lessons from that series, everyone on the team. And yet, everybody except for Sam Girard gets a pass now that, we're all looking at the Avs as this post Stanley Cup team, but Sam Girard is the only one stuck in the Vegas series.
And the other thing is, big guys don't clear the crease either. Like, there's tons of clips this year from Englund not clearing, Johnson, McDermott, and even Manson not clearing the crease. To me, that's the craziest narrative, because it's just not true. So that's also part of the everybody needs to defend, right? And that gets to your point, Jacob, that it's not just the small guys that got run over; it's everybody.
And that old style of clearing the crease is very 90s hockey. It's not really how it's done now. What you want to do is win your puck battles and get the puck up the ice. And Girard is good at that. So I don't know what the deal is. This bias that we've talked about is really, really clear. I didn't recognize that NBC was the source. But I guess you heard it here first.
And breaking
NBC
news,
hates our short king.
It didn't work for the Golden Knights either.
It didn't work for NBC either, did it?
That's
no,
right.
It didn't work for NBC, and it didn't work for the Golden Knights. And
I imagine it was Mike Milbury, and we shouldn't trust anything he says.
Yeah, well,
it's true.
The story of that image, I guess, that the Knights had that season was kind of like around Reeves, remember, and the altercation he had with Graves in front of the net and ripping his hair out and all that weird stuff.
Was horrible.
Like that didn't work. It doesn't work. Follow Reeves around and find out which team is still valuing that, and you're gonna find the team that's probably pretty good but gonna lose when it gets time to play hockey. Because Reeves is as if Curtis McDermott were not nice on the ice, like we talked about, he would be like Ryan Reeves, right? And we would see more of that nasty streak come out in him. We just don't see it because it's not there. And we don't to pretend like that sort of style is winning hockey. It's only winning hockey if it's a part of your game, not your entire game. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Now, we did talk about who to replace on the defense if the Avs keep around all these guys who are coming. Excuse me, when all these guys come back from injury, and the Avs are set to be primarily healthy after the break. I know today that Manson and Makar were skating. Manson in a red no contact jersey, Makar back in black. Do we have any other health updates for anybody?
Yeah, Byron was out there before the team got started, so it's good to see that he's still continuously skating. Mulligan was out there as well, so he might be another guy that they're looking at after the break. I think Bednar said something about because the break's something like 10 days. There's really no reason to play any of these guys before the break, so I'd say he's on the horizon as well. I think we mentioned last time maybe he was scheduled to be out about a month, which seems to track. So I think that's where they're at now. EJ did not practice. They said it's maintenance, but that's just code for like
we don't know
injured,
yet.
but not injured enough to not play yet.
Yeah,
we'll see. So
I mean, he was getting extra minutes, and then he had that shift where it looked like he maybe turned an ankle diving to knock a puck away from the net. So it makes sense that he's taking a day off.
So maybe he's a little bit of a question mark for the Washington game, and Makar practiced fully, so he's probably good to go. I think a lot of it is up to him, and sometimes I think he can be a little bit more conservative than maybe some other players are, but he knows what's best for himself. So I think that's where we're at. Yeah, knock on wood. Hopefully nobody else gets hurt during the week, and then with a nice 10-day break, maybe could be looking at the mythical mostly healthy maybe.
Yeah, I think when guys start to come back, I wouldn't be surprised if you see EJ start taking some nights off as like a healthy scratch, quote unquote.
We all kind of wish that would happen, and just Bednar doesn't do that. Like he's just very much like, this is the group. We want the group to be together. We want them to just have this like cohesion and this consistency, and it's like he wasn't giving Helm nights off. He just never did that. He didn't do it with Bellemare. Just sometimes we just wish that, like, is there any need to play these guys at the end of their career every single night? And yet they do.
Yeah, especially guys like Darren Helm, where like the only reason you get him is for the playoffs, right? Like that is the main reason that you get, the Darren Helms, the Andrew Coglianos. Like those guys should be getting some rest so that they can, be a full go come playoff time.
So I hope, fingers crossed. I guess there's always the potential for that. But I don't know. I don't see Bednar doing it, but hey, you never know. Maybe this year he's got to reimagine a few things to be able to get through this season and hopefully be able to make an impact in the playoffs again.
Yeah, and while we're in this area, I do want to touch on EJ. I mean, he's been stepping up in the absence of Makar. I think he's played really well in these last few games, and I love to see it. He's obviously not the flying condor that we got used to in his younger days, but I love his game when he's playing smart, and he's been conserving his energy, being in the right spots, and making just the nice little plays that need to be made. It's good to see.
I think that's part of it is like Gerard's doing all the skating. He doesn't have to skate anymore with the puck.
That's true.
But yeah, like it seemed like he was a little bit rough for the beginning of the year, but it's like the more they've asked of him, the better he's been. So I guess that's definitely encouraging.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I saw I think it was, I don't know if it was the Canucks or Calgary, but he like did one of his patented coast to coast kind of routes and got to the opposite end in the corner, and you could see, like, even in his eyes, he just kind of dumped it in the corner and turned around, and he was absolutely gassed heading back to the bench. And I imagine in his mind he was like, yeah, that's not a thing anymore for me. I'm not gonna try that anymore. I just thought it was funny because that was like, he used to do that against his old team, the Blues, all the time. I felt like to make a point. But yeah, the coast to coast condor, he might be extinct at this rate.
Yeah. But
he's got to really conserve those legs.
The Athletic came out with updated player cards, which are just analytics reports on players that judge how much their market value is and how much value they have based on their contract. And Eric Johnson, obviously at his $6 million number is overpriced, but they graded his market value at $3 million, which is a high end third pairing defenseman, low end second pairing defenseman. And I think that's fair. His play recently has really borne that out. And I don't think he's like cooked, which we may have been saying earlier in the year or at points last year, even where he was really playing poorly, but he seems to have rounded into a form where he is a good third pairing defenseman and a capable second pairing defenseman right now, which is great.
Yeah, that was one of my concerns as the injuries mounted was, him having to play more and more minutes at this age, like would we start to see a decline? And so it's been really encouraging seeing the opposite, that essentially as, he's had more and more thrown on his plate, he's gotten better and better as the season has gone on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to bounce a little bit off your player card stuff, I also, thanks to you, saw Evan Rodriguez's player card, and I thought it was fascinating that his market value is $100,000 above what Calgary paid Nazem Kadri to come be a Calgary Flame.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, if you think about that, he's being paid $2 million a year, and according to these analytics, he's worth just as much as Nazem Kadri. So good moves right there from the Avalanche management, obviously.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Rodriguez is definitely overplaying his $2 million salary, so he's definitely bringing value there. I don't love the model from the Athletic as much because I think it's interesting to compare within a team to see who is performing better or worse, but like those market values are out of whack. Like Makar is like 19 million, which okay, we can say like he's worth that much, but he literally can't be paid that much.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's not actual salary. It's just how much value they're returning on their dollar in terms of production on the ice generally. And it's not even like it doesn't really do a very good job of factoring in underlying statistics. It is truly production because Sam Girard is rated league minimum. Not to go back to Sam Girard. It's really unfair to him on that card. Because his defensive underlyings are like pretty good, but then all of a sudden because his offense isn't as high as it used to be, he's rated so poorly. It's not fair. But it is, I do think it's interesting. Like there are so many different forms of analytics that you have to just take them all in and see like, okay, how does this mesh with what I'm seeing? And what do I believe? What do I like? What do I take away? And you're right. These player cards are a little bit unfair, but they're fun to talk about.
Yeah. Like I said, I like them as a comparison, like all within the same context. So like all on the same team, it's interesting to see like how they would slot. It's just harder to like compare. Like Adrian brought up Kadri. I'm gonna bet that his player card's higher than 7 million. So it's like that's
a good point.
I don't know. Some of their models they come up with, it's like you definitely have to just kind of make sure you're comparing apples to apples with that stuff.
Yeah, that Girard one doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I mean, like, just going by goals, we don't even need to, go crazy. There are 3 teams in the NHL that have allowed less goals than the Colorado Avalanche have all year. And you're telling me that the defenseman who plays 20 minutes a night is worth the league minimum? Like that just, it doesn't square.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. I picked up Kadri's, and it is actually 7.2 million.
Oh, so is it? Okay, all right.
100,000 more than Rodriguez, but
okay. So
they've got his defensive metrics really poor on this card, Kadri's, and I mean, we know from experience as Avalanche fans that he can be a really effective suppressor. So,
and I think all of the Avs get sort of, I don't know if you want to say overvalued, but given a lot of credit for their defense just because, and I think the model the Athletic uses, I think they combine the last 3 seasons, so it's not just this year. Mm-hmm. So especially with how strong the Avs were defensively last year and the year before as well. So like everybody on the Avs is going to have like a lot of value in the defense. Like if you look at Compher's, he's like at 89 percentile, which I know that you all maybe like Compher more than I do, but he's probably, I mean, can we admit he's probably not that high defensively?
They've got him at the 92nd percentile.
Yeah, something like that. So that's stretching it a little bit. And, Peter Baugh, he does great work, but it's funny. He always mentions like Conver's such a strong defensive player. Like, he's one of the league's best. It's like, I
would say it's
I
more
don't
about
know.
like his effort than his defense. I think that's what people get confused with a lot. Is like,
but he has
doesn't
been.
get-
I will say that he has like really made his game more mature and rounded his game more. I will give him credit for that. But
yeah, this year his defense has been very good. I would say. I think he's really stepped up over the course of his career. That's 97%.
That's not it.
Yeah. They also, the picture of JT in the player card, just to illustrate how maybe these guys are a little out of touch. In the picture, he's wearing an A. He hasn't worn an A in a long time.
Oh, yeah. I'm not even sure when that was.
I want to say like 4 years ago. I don't know if I'm right, but that's what I want to say. But we have a newcomer,
or it could be preseason. Sometimes you can find pictures where somebody wore an A in preseason. It's like, when did this guy ever wear an A? And it's because they were handing them out to whoever back then.
But we do have a newcomer here on the podcast right now. Our managing editor, Evan. Evan is here. Welcome, Evan. How are you?
Very new, obviously. I just started yesterday. And I'm already
today,
rising the ranks.
No, you just made it to here today. That's all I mean. And I know you had something you wanted to talk to everybody about to end this pod today.
Yes, I hate to end it on bad news. I just got out of another meeting, also talking bad news, but that's my own personal things. So sorry, you don't get those stories. But
tell us later.
Sure. Basically, I wanted to come on here and address kind of the elephant in the room for what has been the last kind of 72 hours with SB Nation and Vox Media and all of the crap that's gone down, to say it nicely. So basically, Friday morning is when we were told and had received emails about changes that were going on at Vox Media, which included my boss, Steph Driver, who was the managing kind of editor of all of the NHL and all of the hockey sites for SB Nation, was getting laid off, and that she was part of the 7% or so that would be cut, and that then it would be affecting the soccer sites, the majority of hockey sites. I know there were a few others in there, but I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. College basketball, things like that. So of course, in this panic on Friday morning, all of the site managers were receiving emails saying your site will no longer be supported by Vox Media at the end of February, and then Mile High Hockey is one of 6 that is going to be remaining moving forward. So the 6 remaining are us, Canes Country covering the Carolina Hurricanes, Pennsburg covering the Pittsburgh Penguins, All About That Jersey covering New Jersey, the Devils, Lighthouse Hockey covering the New York Islanders, and Stanley Cup of Chowder covering the Boston Bruins. Every other site is going to be non-functioning by the end of February. And I put that in quotes because, at least from the sounds of things, we're not 100% certain yet, but other sites, they will still be up like online. You can read their things. They're not going away. And it sounds as if Vox Media wants people to continue writing and producing things for the site unpaid, which
sure they'd love that. Yeah,
they would love that. And it's something that has been used and taken advantage of by Vox Media. That's how I started at Mile High Hockey. I started as an unpaid contributor, and have just kind of worked up. Most people start like that or start with a very low pay. I can say that everybody in this room, in this Zoom call, does so much great work and does so much for this community, and do not get paid anywhere near close enough to make that happen. it's all a passion thing for us, I think. If I had to guess. And of course, just outside of this room too, but the entire Mile High Hockey staff, that's just how we've been, and we've been trying to do it for obviously this great community that we have. And while we're fortunate to still have this community for the time being, we're going to be losing a lot of many others, which is a really, really big shame. So in case you missed my announcements, I wrote a whole and kind of initial letter reaction on Friday morning, and then one just as of recording today on Monday morning, just kind of telling people how to support us, how to keep us going here for at least a little bit longer. And so kind of the way that will happen is that unfortunately the people above me, all they care about are the clicks, the views, the traffic, and the ad revenue that they get from our websites. Pretty much that's the way they look at it, and that's the way they determine our budget and who gets paid and who doesn't get paid, so on and so forth. Meeting a quota, all those fun business things that this college student is learning right now, who's not a business student. But anywho, so just we've been trying our best to kind of go with it. And as I said too in our piece this morning, is that we've been trying to move away from clickbait articles as much as possible, because obviously they will get you clicks and views and all those things that people above me love. But that's not what I wanted us to be. I had dreams and hopes that we would become, a lot more professional, and maybe one day end up in the press box up at Ball Arena, to give this great community even more bigger, better, exclusive coverage of the Avalanche that you could find only here and not anywhere else. But with that being said, I don't think we're going to be around too much longer with all of the other ships burning and sinking around us. So just wanted to address that. And I know it's unfortunate for a lot of people. I know we're very fortunate, at least here at Mile High Hockey, the 5 of us in this room, we're still going to get paid. We're still going to be able to write for at least a little bit longer about this great hockey team. So the best way for you all in the community to support is to keep clicking, share, follow us on Twitter, retweet on Twitter, do all those things to make the numbers, good. And I hate that I have to ask for that, but that's just kind of the way that it has to be, at least for now, to keep us here for as long as we can be. So if we could just do that, that would be great. And I think kind of the last thing I have to say about this is that, pre Ezra and Jacob era of Mile High Hockey, things were tough. It was really tough. Adrian and Jackie, they can relate to that. They can kind of understand and recognize that probably if this had happened a year ago, January 2022, the Mile High Hockey would definitely be one of the 28 or 27 other sites that are going to be shutting down and not being financially supported. So to that, I say, who knew that a Stanley Cup win would be so influential in more ways than one?
Yeah.
Ended on that good note.
Winning always helps.
Winning always helps, exactly. And I know, Adrian too. You also had things specifically about the podcast that.
I just wanted to let our audience know that like we're not going anywhere, in terms at least of doing what we do here on the podcast. I take a lot of pride in the fact that a lot of this stuff we put together privately outside of the support of our parent company. With that being said, in the future, if there is some site changes and we're told we can't use certain names or stuff like that, that might happen. We'll do our best to kind of not lose track of where our stuff lands on these streaming platforms. I know how to do that already. So there's definitely going to be some some changes, but just know that the crew here, we're not going anywhere. Like Evan alluded to before, this is mostly a passion for all of us. Like the budget we're on right now gets me a couple bags of chips and a Gatorade at the convenience store, which is nice. I'm not going to sit here and say like it's not nice to be paid to do something, whatever amount it is. And I feel for the people who are, losing even whatever small source of income they were getting from these projects, like that's a shame, and I'm really sorry for those people. I will say, we'll be a platform even for those folks on those other sites, because I still have all those contacts. I still know all those people. We're still going to get those people on our programs, and go support these individual writers now. If the site's not a thing, go search out these people. They're going to be popping up in other areas. There's obviously a demand for the services that we provide. It's just that the company we're being asked to provide them for is willing to ask us to do that for free, which isn't something that most companies are willing to do. It's kind of run rampant here in the journalism department these days. But circling back to the podcast, like the lab is not going anywhere. We're still going to be here to do live polls that piss you off. We're still going to be here to let Jackie just chew your ear off about who's injured and who's not. And we're still going to be here for Jacob to tell you that, Curtis McDermott isn't the fit and that he shouldn't be the Senate defender. So we're not going anywhere.
Talk about that every week.
Yeah. Just stay tuned and share us with your fellow Avs fans, and just know that like Evan said, the clicks and the stuff, that's what's going to keep us around. But the support and the passion that we've already seen is why we probably won't ever put this away or put it to bed, at least personally. So thank you for your time. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
I just want to say something real quick before you wrap all of it up.
Oh yeah.
Because I think you're heading that way. But for me personally, I started at Mile High Hockey in 2017. I was not paid a dime for 5 years. So I created content. I am willing to create content to keep the community going if it comes to that. It definitely wouldn't be at the frequency that you are seeing today, but to go off on your passion point, like the money isn't why we all are here, and it would be a shame to see the support go away, but we will find other ways to keep it going if we are allowed to keep it going on the site. That could be an avenue we explore and see what that looks like. But when I was brought in, it was never even mentioned to me that it was working towards getting paid. Same. My impression until really recently was that only the managing editor would be getting paid, and everyone else was just, it was up to you if you wanted to do it. If you didn't, I don't feel taken advantage of because I wasn't under any other impression.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, to me, I'm just thankful that I was ever paid at all. And I'm thankful that it will continue for however long it is. But that's just so not what this site and this community was about. And so we're going to be able to figure something out. And I know the community is so strong across all platforms. I know Mile High Hockey is just one slice of it. And I'm very grateful for anybody that straddles those lines, that is a part of a bigger community somewhere else, and they still come and comment or listen to us. And so there's just going to be a lot of ways to continue what we've built.
Yeah, and just to double down on that, I didn't know that getting paid was a thing until Thomas and Steph, when she told us.
It's a little bit of a secret.
Yeah, it's oh yeah, there's a budget. Yeah. Well, what do you know? So Evan, thank you, and
yes.
Big shout out to Thomas and Steph for the work that you mentioned. A year ago we probably wouldn't have made the cut, so to speak, and a lot of that has to do with those two. So big shout out to them, and thanks to them for their hard work and enabling us to do what we do still.
Absolutely. And I mean, I applied last year under the assumption that I was doing it for fun. And then,
same here.
And then Evan this year was okay, and you're getting paid this much. And I'm like, I am? Right.
It's so much money. It's so much.
Yeah. So yeah, Evan, thank you. And thank you for handling being the bearer of bad news on all of this, and keeping us informed and keeping the audience informed.
But we'll be all right.
Yes,
we're gonna be all right. Yeah, we're gonna be all right.
We'll make it through.
And
But,
just
but
before
yeah.
we finish,
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
we're gonna end by rediscussing the live poll just once, real
Oh,
quick.
no.
Yes,
I did.
absolutely.
Okay,
I want to hear
I didn't
Evan's
see the
thoughts on
live.
this. Yeah.
I did not see the. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go to Twitter right now.
We got
So
angry about Sam Gerard.
156. Yeah, 156 voters. We got 6% of them voted for Sam Gerard to be benched in the event that these Avs. 49% Curtis McDermott, 35% Jacob McDonald, 10% Brad Hunt, 6% Sam Gerard. So he's the least. And some of the comments are funny. Gerard over England? Come on. The fact that Gerard's even on this list is
the
laughable.
Gerard over England one is particularly funny because it starts with the fact Gerard is on this list is laughable. I would, and then somebody else is like, Gerard over England? Come on.
I was gonna say,
exactly.
I see our Eddie already commented on Gerard over England. Come on.
Mhm.
Bench the people saying Gerard. That's a great comment.
Right.
Yeah, that is great.
It's I wish
We
I
had a good rant about it. This
I was
is
gonna say-
definitely
Oh yeah, yeah. We
this
got
is definitely
we
not
got
the Sam Haters Club.
mad. Yeah,
Yeah, let's see. I'm
we
gonna
got,
do
we
the.
got
I'm gonna
very
do the
mad at
math.
that 6%.
I'm eager to listen back and hear the conversation.
Gerard wasn't the Gerard. Brad Hunt was in the lead for a while, not Gerard. So I'm glad it flipped because
Yeah.
people are wisening up a little bit. But
It's
Brad
9
Hunt has
people.
been
There's
so
just to
great
let the
as
record
of
show
late.
that's only 9 people. So that's not 10. There aren't 10 people on this earth that think that. Hopefully it just stays at 9. And
I'm
we're
gonna
good.
vote for Sam Gerard just so that
just
I
to
can
put it over.
I do have to agree with Eddie that putting Gerard on this list enabled the trolls. But you know what?
I know, and it was my idea, so like I know we were
Here's the
walking
thing.
into.
Here's the thing. Maybe it enabled the trolls, but like I responded, it also highlights the fact that these trolls exist. And
Yes,
these
absolutely.
trolls should be talked about because we need to get rid of them.
One
So
of
like
them is
obviously,
probably
we're doing a public service here.
yeah, that's
I'm
their whole
actually
point.
surprised it's that low, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet
happy.
I bet you one of those 9 is the guy in Calgary who had the Trey Gerard sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Has to be.
we've
talked
kicked
about
that
him
guy
too.
out of the fandom. He's not.
Yeah,
an
I
Avs fan
already did
anymore.
my you're no longer allowed rant for him. So and just to double back to that, like hit me up, bro. Let's talk because you need
Yeah.
some help. You need
Yeah,
some
come
help.
on
I'll
the
get you
podcast.
back into loving your
We'll-
team instead of hating them.
Yeah,
We'll have
let's
an
him on the
intervention.
pod. Fix this.
Yeah, yeah, we'll bring him on. That would be a good episode. Hey, we
would
have
be
the
great.
guy who hold the Trey Gerard sign on our cast. Come talk shit. Yeah, right on,
We
y'all.
could-
Well,
I mean, we probably shouldn't have this conversation on air. Maybe edit this out if you want, but we could have audience members on as guests sometimes to see what their concerns are about the
Yeah,
Avs
we
and
did a-
disabuse them of their crazy
Like a
notions.
call
me and
show.
Evan did a Spaces after a couple of games, and we got some visitors that we did not know who these people were. They were talking not about the Avalanche, so we'll do that.
I
But we're gonna
remember
have
the
to
one where
we're
there
gonna have
were
to
people
vet
talking
the
in another language for a while.
yes.
Oh,
And
wow.
who knows? God knows what they were saying. Like, no offense, I just
No
didn't know what
idea.
language it was. Yeah, so it could have been
I think,
terrible.
I think it was French, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that sounds right.
hey, put it on the idea board. We need
Yeah.
things. We need
Put a pin in it.
clicks. We need
Just do a
support,
bunch of
so that
trade
might be it.
speculation articles. That'll be
Yeah.
enough clicks for the whole year.
Yeah, if we've got this this Trey Gerard poster guy on our podcast, I guarantee we'll get clicks on.
I
that
have
one.
comments about the whole thing and the trade speculation, but I'll keep that for off air.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
Well, then, since I'm excited to hear about that, let's get off the air. This has been another great episode of the Mile High Hockey Lab. On behalf of everybody here at Mile High Hockey, I'm Ezra Parter, and we appreciate you listening. Tune in next week,